So I'm making this as a preface to shadow work. And if you don't know what shadow work is, just a very brief once over is it's talking about what we've learned to call the shadow, which is a part of our basically our psyche, the way we operate, that we have been taught since early childhood to just ignore, or it's been shamed, and it becomes a part of our unconscious actions. So, part of the preface of this is to protect yourself while you're doing shadow work. The reason I'm saying this is because there are abusers, like abusers will use your ability to self reflect against you. All sorts of abusers. They'll also use it at some kind of like aha moment, like, aha, you deserve to be abused by me because of your unconsciousness. And that just is not how things work. Everyone on this planet is unconscious, and nobody deserves to be abused for any reason. It's not how things work, or it's not how things should work. But unfortunately, there's abuse is rampant. But I mean, no one deserves to be abused for their unconsciousness, meaning like no one deserves to have like domestic violence or be tortured because, oh my God, you didn't know something about yourself. So what I mean is like to be careful about your own personal process when you're working on your unconsciousness, be careful about who you share the details with. Like I'm going to be sharing here about my own unconsciousness, but certain details I'm not going to share because I know I deserve safety in when I share it. And yeah, you still deserve privacy though you're working on your unconsciousness. So I'm very public about a lot of things, but I'm also very private about a lot of things. And that's been a learned lesson in life, though it is still something that I am defining and I keep redefining. So, for instance, my ex knew that I was self reflective. And my one of the big processes that has helped me since I'm 43 right now as I'm making this video, but I started in, I think it was like 23, 24 is when I first started intensive self work and self reflection. And my ex knew that. And I fled domestic violence over a year ago. He's still stalking me. Um, but he knew that I was self reflective, and he knew that I was in a point in my life that if someone said something about my impact on them, I would take it as truth. And I would self reflect and be like, oh, wow, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to grow? He used it as a weapon. And he used that. If you're around a safe person, and they share with you the impact of your actions, that's very important. That is very important to take on, very important to self reflect. But when it becomes dangerous is if you're around an abuser and they use your ability to self reflect to groom you and gaslight you into believing what they're saying is true when they're actually psychologically manipulating you. And this happened to me. And so I'm putting this warning out for all of you who may be listening to this, and anyone who's on a personal journey of growth and self reflection. Be very careful who you are around. I mean, honestly, it becomes a lifestyle, really. Like it just becomes a lifelong process, in my personal experience, anyway. So when you start to do this work of like deep self reflection and being like, huh, what's my part in this? When you're trying to clean up your side of the street, be careful that someone's not telling you the entire street is all you. Now there may be some circumstances where, yeah, you fucked up. The entire street's yours. You better get to cleaning. But you have to be around safe people to really hear that. So it's really, really pivotal to be very careful. Also, if you have a therapist that would be a good therapist, let's say, then that would be awesome. You're lucky. I'm lucky to have a good one. So if you have a good therapist, you can take that and reflect it back to your therapist and be like, what of this do you think is like really on point? If you're not sure about someone, if you're not sure about someone's input. But I really, really strongly urge you to be very, very careful. Okay. So I wanted to make this video because it is very vulnerable. It is very vulnerable to look into your own unconsciousness. And one of the big things here in Open Hearts Unite is about discovering unconsciousness, also being open hearted. Part of being open hearted is self reflection and self excavation on where is my unconsciousness, right? So I spend a lot of time on my business, on my like on my blogs and everything, on my YouTube channels, on our podcasts, me. And if you're new here, I'm a DID system. So we, as a system, we also spend a lot of time deconstructing unconsciousness. So I spend a lot of time talking about the unconsciousness of society, the unconsciousness of the world, the unconsciousness of racists, sexists, homophobes, transphobes, ableists, and so forth. And so, like, lately, I've just kind of been reflecting and, like, oh, okay, you know, I've been doing a lot of pointing outward, not because it's not accurate, but also reminding myself, like, oh, I got my own unconsciousness to also pay attention to. So I like pulling it back into myself as well, and kind of just started, I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. I'm so busy being right about how wrong everybody else is. I need to, not because it's not accurate, but also balance, like, okay, where do I need to look at myself as well? And again, you have to be careful with this self reflection, with this process, because people use that to negate the things you're saying. And I'm not negating the things I'm saying. I'm standing by everything I'm saying, and it's spot on in my personal experience. It's spot on. So what I am adding to, and this is kind of a process I'm working on right now, and I'm working on fine tuning. Like, what does that look like? How do I do that with also keeping my privacy, with also making sure I don't go into like I stay in shadow work and not go into like shaming the shadow, or so it's like, what does this look like now to express, share, but my own process without going into some self-flagellating hell, because I'm just not interested in that. Been there, done that. You know what I mean? Obviously it's still going to come up, but how do I process through that without turning into some kind of like mea culpa bullshit, because I'm so uninterested. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm working on. But before I start that, I really wanted to make this video. And I know I am repeating myself, but sometimes for me personally, that's kind of how I process, is to really get something ingrained in myself. And I've noticed for myself personally in absorbing something new, that helps me too, is if someone's repeating it in a multitude of different ways and kind of emphasizing why it's so important. And that's why I'm doing this here, because I have had, when I entered the whole process of self reflection and doing shadow work, I have had a lot of abusers pop in. And most recently, my ex abuser, who was my fiance at the time. Um, and my perception of a lot of things was like, oh, if I'm in a relationship with someone and they're telling me who I am, then that must be true. And there is a part of that that's important. Of course, it's really important to hear the impact of someone. But again, if they are not safe, it's very dangerous, because they will create an entire story of who you are. And if you're someone who self reflects, you will take it on. You will become that their story that's not based on reality, that's based on their desire to destroy you. My ex wanted to destroy me, and he destroyed my life. He did. I am rebuilding now. He destroyed, part of the abuse was financial, well, heavy, big part of the abuse was financial as well, psychological abuse, all sorts of other things I'm not really interested in going into right now, but a big one was financial and psychological. And yeah, he just completely made me the villain of his story. And I believed it because I was in such a self-reflection mode. I'm like, oh my gosh. But it turned into beyond self-reflection. It became like I just took on his abuse because I didn't know that he was lying. Like I trusted everything he said, and I didn't understand yet at the time how dangerous he was. So I really want you all to be very careful, and I want to share this as, again, a preface before I start talking more about shadow work. Be very careful who you share your shadow work with. Be very careful who you're around. Have some, other people who can reflect back to you. He had isolated me from my friends. He had groomed me to believe in what he said over my friends, that my friends were being too lenient with me. Like, he's really, really, like, unmanaged narcissist behavior. And psychopathic behavior as well. And I don't mean that in a flippant way. Like it was a very dangerous situation. So I cannot emphasize enough. Please be careful who you do your shadow work around. Um, so there would be people like he used my unconsciousness, like aha, like this whole aha game that I had mentioned earlier. Like if I'd share something unconscious and I thought I could trust him, he would warp that into treating me like I'm some terrible evil human being or something. He used the work that I had been doing in my past as well. He used everything against me. Um, so anything that I shared as an unconsciousness, he used it as a weapon. Like it became a point of vulnerability where he could attack me in. He didn't nourish me. He didn't nurture me. I have a healthy partner now where if I share an unconsciousness, they're there for me, and they're understanding, they listen and stuff like that. They don't weaponize it against me ever. And that's new for me. I laugh not just because because of the ridiculousness of the shit I've had to go through. Or I didn't have to go through, but I unfortunately went through because of an abuser. So I will repeat this ad nauseum on probably other videos, like just little disclaimers here and there on be careful, be very, very careful who you share your shadow process with.